Welcome to episode 8.
Yeah, Kevin just finished eating. We were enjoying listening to him eat into the microphone. Ryan is nice enough to have not recorded that, so nobody will have to listen. If you guys didn't notice, we're at the Yukon location. We are not in Kevin's office right now. I know it's hard to tell the difference, but this is the Yukon location. We saw the opportunity to do one in the new store. We don't have the opportunity to really do them in the store at all, so this was kind of a cool deal. So you kind of get to see. She ain't much, but she's honest work right now.
It's a true look of what it like. We didn't really clean it up or anything.
No.
This is what it is, and it wouldn't be worth it because it would be right back to this tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So
what's up, Ryan?
This is what it looked like.
Yeah, there you go, Ryan.
I think
I've been saying that all week.
That's nice.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think he started that whenever he was getting sleep deprived on Saturday night when we were here late. Doing build out.
That'll happen.
Yep.
Well, I think that it's an interesting time going through these build outs because obviously we didn't do one for a number of years after Quail doing. Sounds like a nice motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
But doing the Norman one, like the parts that we played in that, but especially this one, like. It's one of those things that we do infrequently enough to forget like how much work it is and also just like how much stuff it is. It's crazy. You go and you get flooring because we do the flooring here and it's like, how many boxes of flooring did you end up? You had to go 2 different places.
I don't know how many boxes. I just know 2,000 pounds worth of flooring.
2,000 pounds worth of flooring. Each one weighs about... Let's do some math. I'm just kidding. But it was a ton. I would say like we did 2 different loads just because like
my truck couldn't handle.
Yeah, right.
Handle 2 loads.
And that's just the flooring panels. Like that's just that. Not to mention all the shelves or
shelves or 2 trips.
Yeah, shelves. We've got the tower. Everything. It's just kind of a crazy deal. And you also realize how ridiculously expensive it is. I think I have sent you $1,000 in receipts today alone.
Just today, yeah.
And just random crap.
Yeah,
yeah, like for real.
And that's just been constant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we started. So this one's a little different than our other locations, where this one is a first generation space. We've always been in second generation spaces where someone else was a tenant before we were.
That means it's a new building.
It's a brand new building. We're going to be the first ones in this one.
That's right.
Unless someone really pulls through and does their build out.
That'd be crazy.
In record time. But
we're doing our build out in record time at this pace, man. I can't believe how far we are already.
It's so, again, obviously a little different because we got some things done that we've had to do in the past. Like at the first 2 locations, we had to build the wall ourselves. You can YouTube all that. We've had to have...
We have one poorly built wall, one well-built wall, and a professionally built wall now.
Yeah. That's
They all work.
Employees at Quail know not to lean on that wall.
Yep.
But we haven't had to do quite as much. Like we did have to paint here, which was nice because, the builder needed to paint the walls anyway. So, hey, what color do you want them? This one came with a mop sink. They worked,
which is a bigger deal than people realize.
Yeah, that was at Quail. That was $5,000 to put a mop sink in. My
car's not worth $5,000. That's really not.
My truck's getting down there too, actually.
Yeah, your dumpster truck.
It's going to be a company work truck eventually.
Yeah, which means it'll. Yeah,
but
be good. That's a good job for it.
But yeah, they took care of the 2 walls. They even put the bathroom in the spot that we needed, where it would usually go in the corner. They moved that up a little bit, which was nice. Yeah. They're taking care of the drop ceiling. That's not anything we've ever had to do before, but that's unique to our space within this building. So we didn't have to do any demo.
Yeah.
So there's a lot less, but usually, obviously, it's like a kind of a step-by-step process, but when we were doing Norman, I actually was doing the math. When we did Norman, when we got to the point where we could put flooring in, it took us a month and a half to open. So that's kind of where we started here last Thursday.
Yeah.
Overall, when you look at store to store, Quail took 3 months to open. From the time we got the keys to the time we opened was 3 months. We narrowed that down at Norman a little bit at 2.5. Yukon we might do in a week.
Yeah,
so
for real.
it is moving.
Not to, hopefully by the time that we post this, that's not completely wrong. So don't overly get your hopes up. Be looking for us to post, but I'm with you, man. It has been. We've had the keys for how long?
Since yesterday. Wait, no, Saturday.
Yeah, like we've had access to this place.
Yeah,
since
sorry.
Saturday.
No, we've had access. So we got to start our flooring on Thursday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they.
So
it was
today is Monday, and it looks like a triad.
You could have stole our flooring in between Thursday and Saturday.
1,000%.
Yeah, because it was in here unlocked.
Honestly, you still might be able to because we're still figuring out exactly how to lock it.
Oh, I got it figured out. I'll show you guys.
Yeah, no,
we got TVs in here now.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been fun. Everybody, it's been a cool thing because a lot of people have chipped in. A lot of employees have been able to come and help. A lot of people have had to work and stuff like that, so we understand. But it's also been, it's been cool to see all the help that has kind of come and the benefits of a growing team who are especially willing to just, put in extra time when they can on getting stuff like this going. We are very much, we all sacrifice now to cross the finish line together kind of deal. And so I think this has been a cool opportunity where that's definitely shown, where a lot of the employees, a ton of people, I mean, there's been multiple of us up here today, come and go, just doing what they can. And it's been cool.
It's at the point now where I think we've got someone here pretty much at all times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, if you want to pitch in and help out, it's, just pop by or maybe text a group, make sure someone's here. But Saturday was a really cool day because obviously, a lot of us don't have as many of our regular responsibilities on Saturday. So Alyssa and I, we started off our morning at the storage units, picking up stuff and got here, around 10 or so.
Yeah.
And met you here. The three of us worked for a couple hours. Then Kaylin came by. And then Will showed up. And then Ryan came by. So it was just like, there was someone else here. Like Alyssa and I were here from like 10 to midnight on Saturday, but there was always someone else here with us working the entire day, which was really cool.
Alyssa got here, I think she said probably she was meeting ADT. I think she got here at noon or something like that. It's 7 o'clock now, and there has been somebody here the whole time. So that's cool. It's
going a lot faster because we were doing the same thing we've done in the past of, I think the baseboards that we did the baseboards on Saturday. And that's like I feel like a great comparison where quail, we had to figure out, do we want to do baseboards? Do we want to do some we
know the
molding?
recipe.
Do we want to do some molding up top? And so we had to figure out what we wanted. Then we go to Home Depot. Okay. We're looking for something super simple, super basic. You spend an hour looking around, don't find what you want.
Yeah.
Then you got to go back to the drawing board, look online. Okay, Lowe's looks like they might have what we need. Okay, you go to Lowe's, make sure, you got all the right, the right amount. Where this time it was like, okay, we know what flooring or what baseboards we need, and we know, so it takes us 10 minutes to figure out the measurements of how much we need. Lowe's is 3 minutes away from here.
Yeah,
we're in and out of Lowe's in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Starting doing baseboards. So from the time that we were like, okay, what do we need for baseboards to the time that it's done was like a few hours.
Yeah.
Where at Quail it was like a 2-day process.
Yeah. Well, that's cool though. I mean, it's part of getting better at it and just understanding what it takes and what we need. And we know our recipe now, which is cool. I think, we had the proof of concept that it all kind of worked at Quail. I think we had the proof of it being the ability to replicate it down in Norman. And now it's kind of like, cool.
Vincent was the one that said that when because Vincent, previous partner, co-founder here, we all worked together. The three of us worked together with Chad at Supplement Superstores. Vincent said that when he visited the Norman store after we opened it, of like, man, this looks exactly like the Quail store. It's, man, the ability to replicate it is just, he's like, that's really cool. Like, it was cool to see how excited about that he was.
Yeah.
And he was the one that really pointed it out a lot.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. It definitely is. Also, a little off topic, it is very interesting to be on the same side of the table as you.
It is.
I feel like, what the newscasters and like the sportscasters, when they like look at each other and talk, and then they like look at the camera. I've been doing that. I've been practicing my, so. Tell us, Kevin, what do you think of that touchdown play?
Well, I'd get into it, but
You don't know what a touchdown is. I get it. Moving on.
It's when it goes to the basket, right?
Let me ask you a question. We talked about this a little bit before, but I do think it's an interesting thing. How many people? How have you had anybody ask you, like, what? Like, I had two different people today. I'll just explain it this way. Two different people today asked me like what we were going to talk about on the podcast. Have you ever had anybody ask questions like that? Because the answer is hilarious.
Yeah, I get a lot of like, what's the format? Like, as kind of like we're back end, like, how do you guys like set it up? Like, how's it scripted? What's the format? Oh,
it is not at all. I was talking to Laurel about it, and it's funny. She's like, yo, and Kaylin asked as well, but they were both just like, like, oh, what are you guys talking about on the podcast tonight? And I was like, oh, we have literally never discussed what we were going to talk about ever. Like, not even... Have we ever discussed like what the topics we were? The first episode we were kind of like, yeah, we might do this, but we didn't stick to it at all.
no, we didn't. We
Remember those questions that we were going to do?
Yeah, we had questions kind of lined up in case we got to kind of like some sticking points just to keep things rolling.
We were 7
interesting.
episode in.
Yeah, we gotta like,
We haven't
okay, we might talk about our history a little bit. I think we spent 10 minutes talking about our history and we didn't answer the questions until like episode 4. So
Yeah, no. So if anybody is curious, we plan absolutely nothing. The only reason this thing actually works is because Ryan is here and he sets all of these things down in front of us, and then Kevin and I start yapping to each other. And that's it. So luckily for us, we have a Ryan. Isn't that right, Ryan? Yeah, he nodded.
It wouldn't be as fun if we had it overly scripted. It would be a lot of work.
No.
If it was a very like extremely scripted thing, it would be more work than I think I would be able to put into it right now.
And
I wouldn't enjoy it as much.
I don't think it would be as good. Not saying that it's not good, but it would be. I think if we scripted all of it, I don't know. I like just talking about whatever.
Yeah, it's more genuine conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So next question on the agenda.
All right, we got through that one. But it is funny because I don't ever think about it that way. I don't know. We just like sit down and start talking, and it's like, but people have asked, even guests have done well with it though, of it just being like, hey, by the way, like nothing's off limits. Like just kind of go for it, and we'll kind of, if it doesn't work, we'll deviate from it.
That's what I was talking to Marcus Wade with Trinity and M1, coaching, coaching more, big time bodybuilding coach, and he was one that was actually asking me about the podcast a little bit, and he was actually asking me what the format was, and I was like, man, there's really no format, like, and I think that's by design, and he was like, so what kind of things do you guys talk about typically? And him and I had been talking for I think about 30 minutes, and I was like, man, just anything like what you and I just talked about for the last 30 minutes. That's a podcast.
Yeah, right. That's it. That's what we do.
It was actually, it was a really good conversation. So like genuinely I meant that.
He's always a good conversation. Every time I talk to him, it's always a very good conversation. He's a good guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And he's jacked out of his mind.
Yeah. He's always so complimentary too.
Oh yeah.
Makes me feel great about myself.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, when you're just like, my goodness.
Yeah.
And he's like, by the way, man, you're looking great. And you're like, thanks. Appreciate that.
He's an IFBB pro. So to get a compliment from someone like that, means a lot.
Well, and he's also somebody who like Marcus has been around the block a few times, like he's somebody who has been around, he's been doing this for a long time. He's been competing and coaching and worked in the fitness industry for a long time. So it is something like, similarly to like the last podcast when we had Patrick on, like when somebody like that is complimentary of like what you're doing or how you're doing things, it's like it carries a lot of weight because there's somebody with a very big perspective of what the fitness and the supplement and all that industry looks like. And especially Marcus sees like what it's been like in Oklahoma City for the last 20 years or whatever. And it's like he has the opportunity to be like, no, you guys are really doing a good job. And it's like, oh, well, that actually means a ton because you know what you're talking about.
Two things. I think it's pronounced complimentary. Second thing, Marcus was the seasoned veteran when we started. Like when we opened in 2015, we met him. He was training at the weight room, and we were out there sampling from time to time, so kind of got to know him as like he's the dude. Like he's a big time coach here in OKC. So
Yeah.
he was established when we were getting started, and that was 7 years ago.
7 years ago now.
Yeah.
How many? When did it opened? November what?
November 13th. I remember because it was Friday the 13th.
Nice. 6 days from now.
Yeah.
Wow.
6 days from recording. So releases on Thursday. So just in a few days.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
7 years, man.
That's wild.
It's so wild. I think it's man, I remember saying, 2 or 3 and people being like, "Oh, yeah, you guys are making it," It's like, "Yeah, great." Now it's
7
like
is old.
7 is old, dude. That's a full blown toddler
Yeah.
playing sports.
Yeah, getting into a little league.
Yeah.
Mm.
Dang.
That's
Wild.
it's old enough now where I have to like sit and think for a second. I'm like, yeah, 7.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, up until like 5 and 6, I could remember, but I think I said 8 the other day, and I'm like, I don't think we're that long.
Well, it's funny because I remember back when we first started at Supplement Superstores, they had been open at that point for like, because they opened in what, like 98 or 99 or 90, 97, something like that.
I think it was 99.
Yeah. And it was like, we were there in 12, 13, 14 kind of range. And so it at that time was, 13 years old. And we're like, oh my gosh, 13 years old? Like, that's so crazy. And now we look at 13 years for a store and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That's a long time for sure. But it's not like it will be a blink of an eye and we will be open for 13 years.
Dude, that is kind of wild to think about. It's like we were there at almost the halfway point in the lifespan of Supplement Superstores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird, man. There's guys that we'll work with at First Form. I think they end up pulling some of the guys from the stores, Supplement Superstores, over to work at First Form.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll meet some of those guys and they're like, oh yeah, I worked at the store for 3 years. Now I've been at First Form for 1 or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dang, you've been there for a while. And I'm like, that's like you started at Supplement Superstores after we opened TRIAD.
Yeah, literally. Well, I was talking to like Jean-Luc and all of them, and it's like when they were talking about, when just talking to them in general, but they were talking about times when they were in the store, and I was like, oh, like when were you in the store? And he was like, oh yeah, I was in the store in 2019, and I'm like, geez, like I had been out of the store.
Alfonso was working at TRIAD.
It's like I had been out of Supplement Superstores for like 5-6 years like 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is, yeah. It is weird. I think I've really started to come to terms with being roughly 10 years older than a lot of our staff now.
Yeah.
That is
Hasiel is 18 years old.
Yeah. I think that's the one that has gotten me of like, dude, you are what you said it the other day. You were like, he is young enough to biologically be my son.
Yeah. Maybe he is.
Never know.
Hasiel. It's me or Papa. Papa. I'm your Papa. But yeah, man, that's like a super. Well, hold on. So Hasiel's 18. So, oh man. So let's go. 12 years ago would have been him starting kindergarten, right? So if he would have started kindergarten 12 years ago, he started kindergarten in 2010. I was in college. You were in college. Or you were getting to college.
I was senior year of high school.
Yeah. I was
starting kindergarten.
Yeah. And I was in college. Because essentially I was his age then. When he was starting kindergarten, I was his age. Ew, that's so painful.
There's some benefits to it though. I'm picking up on his terms a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't call these sweatshirts. You and I both made the mistake of calling them sweaters, and Alyssa hates that.
Yeah, I had no idea that there was such a difference.
Sweater is, it makes sense. Sweater is something
I just
you wear to a
never
Christmas
differentiated it in my mind.
I don't think so.
You would wear that to a Christmas party though.
Maybe something with a little collar too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but sweater is something maybe plaid or
more
pattern
knit.
to it. More knit, something you'd wear to a Christmas party.
I get that.
This is apparently a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Hasiel calls it a crew neck, so I'm like, that's what I'm calling it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
To stay hip with the children.
FR.
Yeah. Dang. That was that was
Will
lit AF.
Will helps us a lot too.
Yeah, no, what Will says is made up stuff. I'm convinced.
Some of it is just terms from New Zealand. So but it fits in well, so you can't really tell a difference.
See, the thing is, he could say whatever he wants and say it's from New Zealand, and we'll all buy it.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got an advantage. I'm going to start saying things and tell you that it's from St. Louis.
Yeah.
I won't buy it.
Yeah.
But
like the trick or treat thing. I still believe that's only a St. Louis thing.
Alyssa is having a hard time coming to terms with that.
And I feel bad about it because I know she's very passionate about it. And maybe you guys can answer this, comment or something, or just let us know next time you see. I had never heard of this until Alyssa told me about it, and Alyssa said it happens everywhere. Not where I did all my trick or treating in Springfield, Missouri. Mm-hmm. We apparently in St. Louis or her parts of St. Louis.
I grew up with it too. So Florissant, St. Charles.
Yeah. It is, you are to tell a joke whenever you go trick or treating, and that's how you earn your candy.
Yes.
But that I will be honest, I had never heard of that until I talked to Alyssa about it.
Yeah, it's you would have a go-to joke, like you'd have one prepared beforehand, and you would just tell that to the same joke to every single house you go to, and it worked.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan's got a point.
What was your joke?
Oh, it was different every year.
Yeah,
you'd have a different one.
Do you remember any of them?
There was something about a cookie, like what makes a cookie crumble or something like that. I don't remember the punchline, but yeah. But yeah, you'd have those asshole parents that. I hope no one takes that out of context.
Cut that.
That'll be the clip for the week.
Just that.
But no, you'd have those people that would answer the door, and you got this 8-year-old telling you a joke, and the parent or whoever it was at the door would say the punchline before they could. And you're you just ruined an 8-year-old's punchline.
Alyssa was always somebody'd say a joke and it'd be a bad joke, and she's like, "That's a bad joke. You're not getting any candy on Halloween." And I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" I have no idea what you're talking about. And she's like, "What do you mean?"
I think Alyssa really was looking forward to hearing all the little kids' jokes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
She had to put in all this work when she was a kid, and now she doesn't get paid back on the back end. So yeah, that's she's had a hard time coming to terms with it.
Yeah, well, she's taken it in stride. I'm proud of her because it is something she is very passionate about. But I don't know. Ryan, have you ever done that?
Never.
Yeah, I don't.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I never heard of it either.
There was apparently she had a friend in college that her parents grew up in St. Louis telling jokes, and then they moved to Kansas City where that's not a thing. But the parents made I think it was a daughter, tell jokes to every house. So she would go to these houses and tell jokes, and these people were like, "What are you doing?"
Just take some candy.
You gotta tell a joke to get your candy.
My dad says I can't have any candy unless I tell you a joke. Just please laugh. Good times. Yeah, I don't know. You don't remember any of your jokes? Make one up on the spot.
What's lasagna's favorite holiday?
What?
Cheesegiving.
You should have said Cheester.
Oh, missed opportunity.
Yeah. I got it.
There we go. Yeah.
What's a lasagna's favorite holiday? Cheester. That's gonna be one of the things. That's gonna be good. Ryan, you come up with one. Let me hear a joke from you.
I don't think I can top that.
That's pretty good.
I'm gonna have to pass.
Yeah, that was solid.
I was like, I know the format for a joke, but I'm gonna struggle on a punchline.
Oh, that was good. Lasagna. That was out of left field. We got Garfield over here. Hey, what's a lasagna's favorite holiday?
Full circle.
Oh my gosh.
I am fairly sleep deprived.
No, that's good. You want me to think of one?
Yeah. Let me hear yours. Got to be quick.
Oh, why does a ghost wear a sheet?
I don't know this one.
Ryan, any guesses?
I didn't know ghosts existed.
Yeah, they do. They have to wear sheets, you know,
yeah.
over yeah, to cover their boobies.
Did you heard that one before?
There we go, folks. So all the kids listening in St. Louis, you can use these jokes for trick-or-treating next year.
I bet we've got a big audience of
St. Louis
ages
children?
8 to 12 from St. Louis.
Ryan, what's our demographic like in St. Louis?
Yep.
Yeah, middle school.
We're definitely right on script here.
Yeah. Yeah, we've planned all of this. Oh my
Lasagna joke and everything.
My lasagna. That was bravo. We came together on it. It's good.
Yeah.
Cheesegiving.
I got it. So I was like, you and Ryan started laughing a lot. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't have a punchline for this at all. I got real nervous.
Oh man. So I don't know. Maybe you guys have experienced this as a thing. I'd never heard of this until again.
I think
maybe we should use this as a platform to spread the word that should become a thing. So next year, all you parents or children listening, just know that next year it's starting to catch on. We're gonna do it for Alyssa. We're gonna get it to Oklahoma City.
If you come to my house, your kid's gonna have to tell a joke.
Yep.
So I will say from this year, we decided like last minute to do candy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had very little candy. And we're having like 3 kids walking up to the door, and Ellie got nervous. And she's trying to give like all the candy we have left to one girl so she doesn't have to disappoint the other ones. And the girl didn't want to accept any candy. So good luck getting a joke out of a kid in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
The kid didn't want any candy?
She took one, and Ellie's like, here, you can have the other one. And like the dad picked up that we were trying to get inside before these other kids walked up to our door. And she's like, no, it's okay. I don't want it. And she ended up taking it, but we had to convince the girl to take more candy.
Wow.
Probably on a vegan diet.
Yes. At 3 years old.
Yeah. She's keto. You have any bacon? Wow.
There was have you guys seen that video where it's some parents, they've got a bowl of candy and it legitimately has candy in it, and then they throw like a few potatoes in there. Yeah. And they're like, let's see how many kids take the potatoes. And like the potatoes were the first thing kids were grabbing.
Yeah, you're the potato house.
You like hear one kid in the background like, oh look, potatoes, and grabs one.
Whatever, right? Oh, man. Well, yeah. So this will be the platform that we use to spread the word for Alyssa. She doesn't have to hear this one firsthand, so maybe she'll actually watch this episode.
Yeah. This one's for Alyssa. Starting a movement. Jokes for candy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You heard it here first, folks. What?
Nothing. I'm still caught up on lasagna. Lasagna's favorite holiday. That was good. What has been your experience with this store versus the other ones? How do you feel about this one coming into it? There's definitely some differences.
Yeah, I would say with it being the third one, a lot less risky, first and foremost.
Yeah.
We were still very safe about, even when the opportunity kind of first presented itself, we even waited to let Norman kind of do a couple more months so we could make sure that we were still, because Norman's been doing very well.
Yeah.
But obviously, stores that just take time to grow.
Yeah. And
we wanted to be able to kind of get a little bit more data from one year to the next. So we even gave it a couple more months to make sure we were showing a good pace of growth. But once we did that, we, jumped on board. So we pushed it back a couple of months making the decision. But overall, it's been less risky because going from 1 to 2, a second one can tank a first one.
Yeah.
But a third one would have a hard time tanking the other 2, especially since the other 2 are standing on their own feet,
sure,
paying their own bills, and we've it's kind of we've proven our systems.
Well, I feel like that translates as we continue to go too. Like a fourth store, a fifth store, like whatever, it becomes like less like sink the whole ship.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's been a little easier too, knowing that we have the systems, because going from 1 to 2, I was at store 1 every single day. Excuse me. But so we had to go to the point where it's like, I have to now split my time between 2.
Yeah.
And, we don't really have a ton of systems in place because we didn't have to, because I was at the store every day.
Yeah, right.
So at store 2, we put a ton in place, and got a lot more comfortable with 2 being able to not just operate, but grow on their own without needing me every single day, because obviously that's impossible.
Sure.
So proving those systems work has made store 3 a lot easier to jump into.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we wanted to wait those extra couple of months to watch the pace of growth, to show, hey, these systems aren't just, keeping us afloat, but they're actually proving that it can grow the store in that area. So,
Well, I feel like just with that, on top of just general systems that we've implemented in the store, I think that we've done a good job as a whole team of over preparing, like running 2 stores like we had 5 stores. You know what I mean? Like getting systems in place, things like whatever, handbooks, group messages, like whatever we've done, just systems in general, passing on like payroll and the damage board to the managers, like those kind of things are what allow us to click at because we're still at a point where technically one person could do all of that. But it's not about whether one person could do it or not. It's about like, okay, like soon one person won't. So like, let's be prepared now. Let's play, today like it's tomorrow.
If we let one person do it, it will be at a roadblock, and we could grow maybe a little more, but we'll hit a roadblock before too long and not be able to grow past that. So let's, let's change that, make it to where those responsibilities are spread out a little more, so that we are prepared to continue to grow, so that our growth doesn't slow down simply because we don't have the right systems in place.
We ran into that a similar kind of situation happened at the hospital when I was working, where we had sister departments, essentially transport and environmental services, like EVS, the janitor, people who clean. They are both owned by the same company, both under the same contract, but they run it very differently. And one of the things that they did, or at least I always felt like in transport, and maybe it was just out of necessity because we were a smaller department, like as the assistant director, as the manager, whoever is like typically over the employees, like you do all of it. Like you do all the hiring, all the firing, all the HR stuff, all the scheduling, like all the payroll. Like I literally did all of it. And you would talk to, and there's no offense to them, anyone listening, I guess, but like, you would talk to like an EVS person in the same role, and they had like a person who did stuff for them. And so like you talk to an EVS manager and you'd be like, oh, like, one of you guys' interviews, and they're like, oh, I don't even know how to set up an interview. Or it's like, oh, like, this person needs to adjust their payroll. Like, could you do that? And they're like, I don't even know how to get onto our payroll. And you're just like, it was a really interesting thing where, to be honest, I felt like there's something good to like having a structure where other people are doing things. But at the same time, like if you were the leader in that position, if you're not empowered to be able to do the things that you need to do, like they couldn't have transitioned. Again, no offense, but I don't feel like they could transition as well from that job to another job that was like maybe an operations manager in a different realm, where it's like, oh, hey, like you were an operations manager at the hospital doing this. You probably have experience with this and this and this and this and this. And you're like, oh, no, you really don't. Like essentially they were just glorified housekeepers who just did other stuff and would round more. But it's like, they didn't really have the empowerment of like more like training or like understanding a higher depth.
And obviously that can make, I think there's, positives and negatives to both, where like, obviously, it's, if everything's bottlenecked to one person, like that's a clear issue that I don't think I have to explain necessarily, but also not having an understanding of other people's departments makes it hard to communicate when you
100%.
say, hey, there was an issue with payroll. Can you change that right now? And, it's, if it's an issue, or maybe it's like a scheduling issue of like, hey, like we need to move this person over here. And the person that does scheduling is like, well, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Like, give me a little bit. And it's like, what do you mean? You just take them and put them over here. It's like, there's
Right.
like a dozen other things that have to change, and you've
Right.
never done this, so you don't understand. So it can make for some like,
Yeah.
you know, some conflict between departments, I'm sure.
Well, I feel like you have to empower the people who are at the top of a certain group, right?
Mm.
Because if you don't, then they become the bottleneck, I feel like. So for them, it was like, this is your manager. This is the person. This is the top leader on shift right now. If you have a question or need something, this is the highest person you can go to. If they're not actually able to do anything, like, well, what's the point? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, we've done, I feel like, a good job where like, and we've continued to do it, but empowering the managers that we have, like, you know, for me here and Preston and Norman and Anthony in Quail Springs, is it's like that person can handle most of these things. That person can adjust your payroll if you need to. That person can change your schedule if you need to. That person can do X, Y, and Z. Pretty much anything that needs to get done can be done by a manager or easily passed on to the person that it needs to be.
Yeah.
We have to empower that. I'm getting a little bit on a soapbox here, but it's like, I feel like you have to empower that position with actual ability to make change within like the base level employees.
Yeah.
If not, you're just kind of you're just a glorified employee who like can't really do much.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah, I'm sure it's a balance too. And this is honestly not even anything that I've ever really like consciously like took a step back and thought about. But having like, obviously you can get to the point where you have to kind of pick and choose the right things to make them responsible for and to give them access to, because you could obviously give them not enough, but you could also give them too much, where it's, if they're in charge of ordering all the inventory and POs, that's, you know, potentially too much for one person and not efficient.
Yeah.
And I know there are some other stores that do that, and they probably have the system figured out much more than I do, because that's I don't understand it, because that's obviously not ours. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I feel like that's a big part of like how you structure your entire business model is what responsibilities do you give which people,
right?
Because I know we do, we work with Supplement Giant. They've brought in Define Nutrition, our brand, and our retailer for our products. And they order, I think it is one person that orders, but they order for each individual store has a different card that they pay with. So it's all different invoices for every single store.
Wow.
And that is, we operate a little bit that way. We'll do different orders to different stores, but it's all on one card, and most of our orders go to one store and get distributed.
Yeah. Well, I feel like one of the big things that ends up happening, even if you look at the manager's point of view, like I think for us, like if a manager's trying to, here's maybe a better way to put it. If we're going back to the hospital and going back to the EVS department, how are their managers or people, shift leaders or whoever these, you know, people, they were managers, how are they empowered to like progress, right? Because they don't know how to do anything else. They haven't learned to do anything else. Like there's not a lot of like stuff that they could do, where like for us, if like, you know, Anthony moved on to like a regional manager or whatever, it's like, cool. He knows payroll. He knows damaging products. He knows shift scheduling. He can do all those things where it's like if a manager came to him with a question, he could answer it and he could be a help and a resource for them.
True.
You then take a manager from that EVS department and then put them over the other ones. Now you're having to teach them how to do these day-to-day things while they're not even doing them day-to-day anymore.
I feel like that is one cool part about this, our model is that you learn a lot. You learn about like a lot of the aspects of the business. Like, I mean, we've seen it with like Alfonso, who was, you know, came on at a point in time where it was only two other people. So, you know, he had to be involved with every aspect and responsible for
one of them.
a third of it.
Yeah, right.
So you learn how to run a business, but I still feel like there is a lot of that aspect, even with, you know, 13 people now. Is that, man, you learn a lot of the aspects of how to run a business.
Yeah, 1,000%. You definitely do. You're the day-to-day like person running the business. And in today's triad, that is what you're doing. Preston runs Norman.
Yep.
Right? Like Anthony
That's his store.
runs Quail.
That's his store.
Exactly.
Yep.
And day-to-day, everything, questions, problems, 99% of it goes to him.
Payroll
has to be passed on to somebody else.
Yeah. Payroll, a lot of inventory. Obviously not like purchase orders or like orders
Sure.
or anything, but
keeping an eye, like knowing
Yeah.
what needs to be bumped, what can be dropped, like
Yeah.
all those kind of things.
yeah, absolutely. Scheduling,
That's such a
staff,
massive
interviewing.
part of
Yeah.
it. Interviewing, finding candidates, like all that's the thing. And I think that's the point that I'm making is like he's the person who should be doing that stuff because
Right.
he is he's not just the
He's
eyes
there
and
every day.
ears, he's the hands, he's everything. He sees it every day, he deals with it every day, he understands. I can tell you, better what to bump in Norman than I can in Quail because I ran Norman,
Right. And it's, I mean, you take Anthony and, have him run Norman, who is obviously a very skilled manager. He wouldn't be able to, like, if it's like, hey, Anthony, for 1 week, we need you to write the schedule and manage everybody, but you can't be there. He would probably not be very great at it in the same way that, like, I wouldn't be great at it because we're not there.
Nobody would be.
Yeah. We're not there on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
That's been the biggest thing. And I know we've talked about it before, but how other companies will hire management and will hire someone that has management experience, but no experience with that company, or even sometimes within the industry of like, we have people that know this business model through and through. Like, I mean, like even take myself and you put me into managing Norman, I'm going to have a transition period where there's going to be a period of time where I'm not doing as good of a job as Preston is because I haven't been there on a day-to-day basis like he has.
Right. It's a huge part of it. And that's why I think, my overall point is like, I think it is such an important aspect to like empower that person to like have the actual ability for change.
Yeah.
Like be able to make decisions, be able to do those kind of things from a day-to-day, like you're saying, I think there's obviously a balance, but I think it is a very important thing to be like, this is the person who does it every day. Like this is the person who should be making at least a good amount of the decisions when it comes to how the day-to-day goes. Obviously there's other factors, but like, I think from just like your general standpoint of like, he needs to be, and this is the thing that we've talked about a lot, not necessarily on here, but like that is the buffer person. That needs to be instead of like, we're still small, but like instead of you getting every question, you don't need to answer every question.
I can answer every question.
You bring up, you've talked about this before, where it's like if everybody on staff had a problem once a week, that's like 13 problems for you to solve. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's a ton. That's too much for
anybody to handle.
Right. Like, especially our problems, like it's that would be tough to do. And so it's like, you don't want Alyssa to be texted every single time this happens, or like, we don't need 30, we don't need all 4 Norman employees sending Alyssa texts on how to bump things. It's like, no, we just need Preston to do it. Like he's the person who's going to like have the knowledge, be getting the feedback from the other employees, see what's moving, see what's in low stock, see what's running out. And then he can kind of be like, hey, we should probably bump this a little bit. I know it's popular amongst my people.
That's actually another system we're going to set in place because we're coming from a point where, over the last couple of years since Norman's been open, we have always met as a company at the store on a weekly basis. We just within the last few months have implemented individual store meetings, and that's still only once a month. But with opening up a third location, we're going to get to the point where we don't meet as a company as often because we can't meet as a company as often.
It'll have room for it.
Right. But we will get to the point where, it makes more sense to have more store meetings, maybe a split store meeting, company meeting, amount of ratio. But one thing that we typically cover at company meetings is, what's new? What's the new products that we need to bring out there?
What are people asking for?
Yeah, what are people asking for? It gives us a chance to kind of talk about, products we have in the store. Do we need to bump thresholds? We see each other on a pretty regular basis. So like, hey, Alyssa has much more of a feel for it. So something we're going to set in place is for existing products, but especially for new products with 3 stores. It's all worked out and it's in a note and I've forgotten honestly what it looks like, but because it doesn't make sense to implement until we have Yukon of a system to recommend new products. Hey, what are people asking for in the store?
Right. It's it's definitely a thing because there's so many factors that go into it where just like it stops being feasible to do like a company wide meeting every week. Like we have too many locations. Like the time that anybody doesn't know, it's next to impossible to plan a meeting and just like find a time where it works for everybody and make it work. And it's like, we do ours before we open. And so, but we still do it leading up to us opening. And so we have one Norman employee currently has to be on the phone for it. And it works. It's about a I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10 on like how well it goes. Like,
Yeah.
like being the person on the phone. It's like you get the majority of the information. We pass things off after that, but it's like, well, now we're adding a factor of like another person being on the phone for the meetings. And now it's like, what happens when we have another store? It's like at some point, it's like, you know what, this just doesn't necessarily make sense. Where I think we're kind of transitioning, and at least what the idea is to transition to like weekly store meetings and a monthly company meeting, as opposed to being a monthly store meeting and weekly company meeting.
Yeah, weekly. Yeah. Yeah, it'll start to transition more and more to that way. So like we'll
Just
probably
has to.
do, you know, with Yukon, we'll probably transition to like a every other kind of week.
Yeah.
You know, every other week is company meeting and then store meeting kind of deal. So
It's crazy.
but yeah, it starts to get to the point. I mean, you have brought up before in company meetings now that we talk about a lot of things that a lot of people don't really need to know about. Like we typically cover a lot of define. You know, that's kind of our last section, last portion of meeting.
Yep.
And you know, a lot of it's formulas, wholesale, ambassadors, that sort of thing. And you know, I think it's cool for a lot of people to be involved, but a new person a lot of times is like, I don't know what is going on.
No offense to this situation or define in general, but that's typically the moment people start getting up and going to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's true, which is fine,
right?
And that's actually how Define kind of started. It was funny. We did a
by going to the bathroom.
Yep. We were both pooping at the same time. For those that don't know, we have one toilet at Quails, so kind of a sharing.
Quite a feat.
It was a very inspirational moment, and
yeah, very intimate moment too. Apparently,
yeah, a lot of positive.
Ryan, what's up?
Some might say a defining moment.
Oh man, I'm gonna bring that up on Cheester. Such a nice time.
Great time of year.
It's my favorite holiday too.
Yeah, you know, I liked my Cheesegiving. That's, you know, Thanksgiving's coming up. There's not enough jokes involved associated with that holiday.
From now on, you guys have to tell a joke to get your turkey too.
Yeah, at this house.
All holidays, you have to tell a joke no matter what's going on. It's like, let's get it going. Start Googling.
Yep. You have to tell my joke. Tell me my joke.
Say it back to me. You did it wrong.
What's a lasagna's favorite holiday?
Come on.
What was I talking about?
How
Define got started.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's pretty interesting. We did so Define did officially launch. I mean, really at the same time that we opened up the store.
Nope.
Our first business loan, we took out a portion of that was dedicated for Define Nutrition. We released a bunch of products. Worked with a manufacturer that did a good job, but we're tough to work with. That's for sure. I don't think that manufacturer is around anymore.
Is this the one that we've spoken about previously?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I told the horror story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
it's nice now. People know what happened.
Essentially, what we did was, obviously, we anticipated to be busier when we first opened the first location, and when we opened, and we weren't seeing the customers that we anticipated to see. You know, we were making our money back as we sold Define Nutrition. So instead of reordering a lot of Define Nutrition, we just kind of funneled that back into
money had to go somewhere else.
Right. So we started with, gosh, I think it was like 12 or 13 different.
I was going to say, because we had male and female thermo.
Yeah. Sleep. We had
2 flavors of pre.
2 flavors of pre that I think we've talked about came in a 2-pound protein sized tub.
Such a ridiculous thing. Not on purpose.
We didn't realize that was going to happen until we got it, which was frustrating.
2 isolates or
3 isolates,
3 blends,
3 blends.
What were the flavors of the blends?
Blends were chocolate, vanilla, and carrot cake.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Carrot cake was good. They put way too much red dye in it.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is like in retrospect, because the carrot cake was good, it went very heavy on the like cream cheese icing. Mm-hmm. Could have called it red velvet cake with what was given to us, and it would have been like perfect.
So when we tried samples, it was like spot on carrot cake. The flavor was awesome, and the color was orange. So we're like, perfect. We won't change a thing. And then they sent it to us, and the flavor was the same, but then they did too much red dye, so the orange turned to more of a red. So when you mix it up, and it's like,
it's not carrot cake anymore.
Yeah.
If they said red velvet cake, it would have made sense. But
and we kind of like sold it as that way a little bit of like, hey, like, just a heads up, like this is more red than was anticipated. It's kind of honestly more of a red velvet cake.
But you don't want to have to be explaining that to a customer
exactly.
while you're selling
it's
it,
not
while they're talking to them about something.
Yeah, not an ideal
but
situation.
It's good, I promise.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, this guy's just trying to get this out.
Yeah.
We did buy one, get one free for those for a while.
For a bit, yeah. We had one guy that was like a big fan of the flavor. He's like, I'd buy this normally. He's like, you guys are doing a buy one, get one free. I'll stock up on this stuff. He's like, I would buy it anyway. So, but yeah, we did the 2 flavors of whey. Those stuck around. And glucose, that stuck around. I think that's 14 products.
Did we do whey 5-pounders out of the gate, or was that a little later?
Those were out of the gate.
Nice.
Yep. All from the same manufacturer, all essentially done on one PO.
Yeah.
And we got most of it at the same time. Some of it trickled a little before, some of it trickled a little after.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we obviously, that inventory dwindled down as we kind of funneled a lot of that cash back to the store to keep it open, keep it running. But we got to keep a few of the products, which was nice. We didn't have to like totally get rid of Define Nutrition. Like it kind of kept our foot in the door, kept us like acclimated to working with our own products. So we kept the wheys and we kept the glucose. Sleep and thermo. There was a period of time where we didn't have them. But we reordered those in 2018. I was actually reformulating as Chad and Vincent were kind of on their way out. That was one of the big things was I wanted to bring those products back. So we got those. I formulated those late 2017. We got them early 2018, released that. We did our first challenge with those. That was definitely a really big month of growth for us.
Sure.
And we had those for a bit. So we were down to 5 products with Define. So it was just, they were just kind of products on the shelves of Triad. Define didn't really stand on its own.
Yeah.
But in 2019, we started getting into wanting to try and like get Define going again. I think it was Alfonso and Zach Yunker that were working at the store at the time that they were really excited about Define Nutrition and the potential it had. So we revamped the website. We released Define Pre that year, and we tried out some advertisements a little bit, but that was kind of our first like, all right, let's get Define going again on its own. And we started making posts regularly. Yeah, like we had gone, I think, a couple years without making a post on Define.
Yeah, well, then we did hydrates and isolates and all these different things that have come out since. It's really, which is funny now talking about it like this, but it's like how many people, I mean, we have Define ambassadors. We have people who are huge Define fans who come and get this stuff all the time. Like we've got a whole network of people that like, that's all they really take is Define and they love it. And I mean, I love it. I use it all the time. I mean, obviously you do too.
Yeah. No, it was cool, man. When we kind of started like putting effort back into it, we haven't lost that momentum since 2019, which has been cool. We've definitely had to kind of like, we'll do a little shift back and forth. So this is kind of a cool thing with opening up Yukon too, is we've got, with Norman, I think that's a good example of before we did Norman, I think we released Define Pump and Define Test. I think were 2 big ones. And then when we kind of focused on Norman, put our time, effort, cash flow into that. And then once Norman, once we open it up and we're like, hey, this, thing's supporting itself, like pretty much right off the bat. Hey, man, we've got, extra cash flow, cash reserves that we don't need for the store anymore. Like, hey, let's funnel a little bit of that to Define. Yeah. So that was last year that we did Define Hydrate. We did Define Multi. We did isolates at the end of the year. Yeah. Hydrates have been a big product for us.
Hydrates have been awesome.
But I think it was it last year it was 2021 we released Hydrates, right?
Yeah. Right.
And
would have been.
Yeah. So
6 flavors now?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And so obviously this year has been a lot of, trying to like, okay, let's shift back to like trying to put cash reserves into trying to open up a new location. And now that we're finally here and like, we've got our like all our systems, our budget like systems in place, it's been really cool because, man, we're going back and forth between doing Buildout here. I'm also, going back and forth with Preston and Bruce and everybody else that we need to work with to formulate products. So like, dude, we've got, we're getting quotes on, I think 2 reformulation. How many reformulations are we doing? We're doing 1 or 2 reformulations, and we're doing 1 or 2 new reformulations. We're doing a different variation of a product and a new product next year.
Yeah.
Like all these things are moving at the exact same time.
Yeah.
It's like it
Super
used to
cool.
be kind of like back and forth.
Yeah, you had to do this one and then this one, and not just time wise, but money wise. It was
Right.
like we couldn't split our focus.
Right. And now it's just both all the time.
Yeah.
So,
which is cool though. I feel like that's really a statement though of how things have progressed, where it's like before we had to look at it that way. This is something that we've kind of talked about before, and maybe this is giving too much information, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is kind of back to what we were talking about at kind of more at the beginning of the podcast, was like we had to have quail be doing really well for Norman to make sense. We had to have quail be able to be like Norman proof, right? Like we couldn't have a situation where like Norman killed quail, right? And then it was like coming here, we were still kind of in a situation where it's like, well, we can't exactly have, we don't want Yukon killing both, and it's lesser, it's not as scary, obviously they're standing on their own and they're very successful, and if this one does it well enough to keep the lights on, it's fine, but we're essentially getting to a point now where the ones that are standing on their own, as long as they just keep doing what they're doing, and like we keep, good people working in there, we keep the right people running them, we keep the right stuff going, we don't necessarily have to wait for Yukon to be a Norman or quail size store before it's potentially throwing our hat in the ring of another location. We're kind of at a point where it's like, you know what, we can kind of, we've talked about it before, where it's kind of like we can have, couple things in the oven at once. We're kind of even experiencing that now, where it's like it used to be like we had one small oven and either a new store opening or Defined Nutrition could be in there, and now it's kind of like, well, both can be in there. And now if it's not after this store, it's after a store soon, where it's like, well, now it starts to look like a store still pretty new and another one's getting put into the oven. Like it's like we can start making those progressions where it's like the most recent store success is not the end all be all on whether or not something else is happening within the company.
Yeah. No, I legitimately have on my to-do list to look at financing for store 4.
Yeah.
Because you look at, how long it took us to really get this one going, and it was, man, we were starting almost a year ago,
right?
Kind of starting to get the ball rolling with this one.
Discussions on locations. We were figuring things out, like not even just locations like within Yukon. I'm talking about locations,
right?
Like in general,
areas.
Yeah, right. Areas of the metro, not. And then it was like, okay, well now we're in Yukon. Like we decided Yukon, and then it's like we had our first 2 spots that we really looked at fall through after, I understand where they're coming from, but after them like kind of holding on to us as a backup, and then their first options went through, it's like, okay, that's fine. And then, I do think we end up where we're supposed to be. We typically do, but yeah, it's like,
do you get the question a lot of, how's the Norman store doing? Obviously Yukon's kind of the area of focus right now, but like prior to this really getting rolling, like, did you get the question a lot? Cause like, obviously, quail's the, proof of concept. Like, hey, we got one in the bell. Everyone, knows it's good enough to open up another one. You get the question of like, hey, how's this store doing?
Yeah.
Because obviously you work that store.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely do.
Do you have a go-to answer?
Yes and no. I think it kind of depends on the person.
Sure.
But not off the top of my head. You probably do.
I do. I think I'm in a little bit different perspective too, because like I'll see people at the gym and like people don't even know which store I'm at or anything.
You just start slapping down.
Whoa!
you just start slapping down bake statements. You're like, "What do you think it's doing, chump?" Just kidding. We're very poor. I don't think that would be an impressive thing.
Check my Wells Fargo account. Check my Wells Fargo.
You fucking lasagna.
I don't have a Wells Fargo account. I feel like if I just had one, just put $1 into it, I feel like I'd
feel cool.
Yeah.
I think I have. I think something happened with my 401k that I had in my Wells Fargo from like working at the hospital. I think it's got
someone's got a 401k.
yeah. The one I cleaned out whenever I came back to Triad. But I think like the timing of like deposits and stuff, and the way it like cleared out, I think there's like $70 left in there.
You know, there's a little white quote.
Listen to me, $70, nothing.
Yeah, there's a great little white quote. I think it's Little White. Ain't no 401k for a hustler.
That's right. That's right. Have you seen that? There's this like stupid meme that I saw the other day where it's like this guy texting somebody who's like buying a car or something, getting financed for something. And it was like, yeah, I just need you to send over your like proof of income. And the dude sends over him with like a bunch of money in his hand. And in the text under the picture, it says, and that's weekly. It's so funny.
Yeah, so that's about my answer.
Yeah.
People ask how Norman's going.
You start pulling out wads of ones. Yeah, check me out. But no, I always tell people that like I think we have a very interesting concept here. Actually, we have a different expectation of like a store doing well. I think because our Quill Springs location is a very strong like supplement store in general, where it's like if that didn't exist, I think we'd be like, Norman's killing it. You know what I mean? Like from a perspective of not having quail, I think we would be like, yeah, it's doing phenomenal. Yeah. Where it's like, for me in my head, it's like, yeah, like it's doing good. Like we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. I typically like let people know when they ask how it's doing. My like kind of go-to thing was like, man, we were paying our bills like first month. You know, and I think that's like for people who understand, like that
was my answer early on.
That was a big deal. Like it was like, you know what, we've been paying our bills since the first month here, and you know we're about 2 years in. We can't ask for much more than that. So it's chugging along, doing what it's supposed to be doing.
I think when people ask me, they're asking a lot of like, how's it doing in comparison to the first store? And so my answer is usually like comparing kind of the two, because I don't think people really have this idea where, you know, there's certain business models that like a really interesting one is Domino's. We've got
some water. Not on the equipment.
But we've got a fraternity brother, Connor, that owns some Domino's locations. And
shout out my home Basil Connor too.
Yeah. Dude, it's really fun to get together with him and talk and just kind of talk, like compare like different businesses. Like but he, you know, talking with him, he would super interesting. I don't know if I've ever shared this, but his he has to prepare when he opens a new location for his first day to be the busiest day they'll ever have.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Because everybody knows Domino's,
right? And
everybody's super excited to get one in that area that doesn't have one.
Yeah.
So they have to like bring in staff from other areas. Like Connor said, his mom came and helped their first day when they opened up a new location.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, totally opposite here, though.
Well, first day though, our first day in Norman was crazy.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, that is actually a good point. But
I stumped you.
Second day, but I think I guess I could be wrong. That's actually probably a good question for him. Is like, does it, you know, is the second day, you know, and third day? Because I know for us, like the second day, like our first day was here. You know, actually definitely higher than our average.
Yeah.
Right now, our second day was about half of our average now.
Yeah.
And then our third day was like, woof, okay, that's
like
slow.
Our third day, we did like literally a tenth of what we did our first day.
Yeah. But yeah, that's apparently from what I gathered, Domino's are like really busy, like right off the bat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you just kind of have to do things to make sure they keep busy and operate well.
Right.
It's
a benefit, I feel like, of a franchise too, is like I was talking to Laurel about it last night because I noticed I was just been in Yukon a lot, that there is no Chipotle in Yukon. Ryan doesn't care because he likes Qdoba. I like Qdoba both. You know what? I like Qdoba and Chipotle. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I'm not one to overly pick sides. I shop at Home Depot and Lowe's. I don't pick teams all the time, right? I do like Qdoba and I like Chipotle. I like Chipotle better, but I like them both, right? They both offer different things. But I noticed that there wasn't a Chipotle, and I was like, man, I feel like a Chipotle would probably kill it, because they feel like they kill it everywhere they are. You know, same with Qdoba, like same kind of business model, and they like kill it. And then I found out, just like doing a little like whatever, sitting in a Chipotle eating, I was like, I wonder how much a franchise of Chipotle costs. All Chipotles are corporately owned. They don't have any franchises anymore. Yeah.
Isn't it owned by like some other fast food?
I think McDonald's has something to do with it, but I'm not 100%. But yeah, it's like they stopped selling franchises in 2006 because they were seeing a drop in quality of like how the stores were being ran. So they stopped doing franchises in 2006, and they're corporately owned. And I was like, man, well, they ain't called Chipotle corporate. Get one out here in Yukon. You know, meet some Chipotle.
Mr. CEO.
Yeah.
I'm out here in Yukon, America.
But I was just thinking, like, it's just interesting that you're talking about this, but I was thinking about this last night, of like the benefits of having a franchise is that people don't have to wonder if you're good or not. You are, what's advertised typically.
Right.
Because I was like, I wonder what most franchises cost. Like, what does a Taco Bell cost? Like, what is, all those kind of things. But it's like, if you have a Taco Bell and it's in the right spot, it's going to make money. Like,
right.
It's going to, if you do the things you're supposed to do, I'm sure Taco Bell's closed. But I mean, it's one of those where it's like, maybe Chick-fil-A is a better answer, where it's like you can put a Chick-fil-A just about anywhere and it seems like there's a line around the block for it.
Yeah.
And so it's like you get that benefit of like having the franchise as opposed to being, Joe's Chicken Shack or whatever you want to call it. Like,
yeah. But no, I mean, and it could be wrong. Maybe these places are seeing a little bit more of like a little bit of growth over time, but they have a reputation when they go into an area. Where us, especially for like Norman, we had some people that knew about us there, but it was actually pretty surprising, like how few people knew about us in the area. That it was nice to start off with like some following and somewhat of a fan base. Yeah. But we really had to work to build it in the first place in Norman. And so my answer goes back to, I think it just a lot of people, when they ask, hey, how's the Norman store doing? Is it, as busy as Quail? Is it busier than Quail? It's to explain. I just don't think they understand like how long it takes us to grow our customer base. Where my answer is always, it's actually doing about half of what Quail Springs is doing, but it's growing at about twice, as fast.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, it is interesting, because I know we've talked about this before, and I think Ryan has even brought this up at times, but like we had that one kid who was driving from Edmond to Norman because he didn't realize there was a location at Quail Springs. And I'm like, brother, I've got great and terrible news for you. Like, I appreciate you and you're going to be happy and upset, but like, you've got a store. And I'm like, like Quail Springs area, you'll live right by there. And I'm like, well, all right, man. Like, there's one there and it's been there for 7 years. Like,
how did he find out about the Norman location before?
I think a buddy of his that went to college at OU was like, this place is got the most handsome guys I've ever seen working here. and so he was like, gotta check that out. So I don't know. I think that was the case. I think his buddy was from OU and just happened to shop with us.
About it, yeah.
Yeah, and was just like, yeah, it's really cool there. They do a lot of cool stuff, like whatever. They've got this brand and that brand that maybe you haven't seen, or maybe you have seen, but you haven't seen it in stores. And so yeah, he drove down and checked. But he'd come like a couple times. And I think like when we, especially in Norman, we put people in the system, they'll say an Edmond address and you're just like, he's just here for school, lives in Edmond, like whatever. You don't ask a lot of questions. You know what I mean? You're used to it. It happens so frequently. Right. And so you like didn't think anything of it. And I was like, something came up and he had somebody with the same name in the system. And I was like, oh, okay, man, like, is this your address? Is that like back home, like back up in Edmond? And he goes, no, I live there. And I'm like, man, like, you live in Edmond? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and you drive all the way down here? And he's like, well, I really appreciate you guys. You guys do a really good job. And I was like, man, have you ever been to our Edmond location? And he's like, you guys have an Edmond location? I was like,
what?
Yeah. And I was like, well, man, it just goes to show, like,
that's crazy.
To your point, though, is it's like, we've been doing this for 7 years. We have a very awesome following. We have an awesome, like not just amount of customers, but
that store is still growing.
Still have people who live within a couple miles that don't even know it exists.
Exactly. This year will be a record year after 7 years.
Right.
It's it just takes time. It's the pace of the growth that we kind of watch more than anything.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's I think one of the reasons why we're always innovating, always trying, and something that Preston talks about a lot, and actually got to go enjoy Andrew Aguero's a good buddy of ours, Andrew Aguero, just opened a new restaurant in Tulsa, 1907 Cantina in Bixby. It is unbelievable. It is like, we got to do like comments, and I was giving like harsh reviews on like everything, and I think the lowest score I gave was like a 7.5.
Really?
On like, and we're talking like chips to salsa to taco to everything, and I was like, this is a 7.5, and it's elote, and I don't like corn. So like, this is a corn dish, and this is still, I ate the whole thing. So I was like, this is still phenomenal.
Wow.
But
so you ate one thing of everything on the menu.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool deal. So we just showed up. They were like, hey, these are the 2 cocktails that we have. And Laura got one, I got one. And then he ended up making me a special one because I'm a special boy. But they were like, okay, cool. Do you want waters too? And their like kitchen's not fully running yet. They literally had to like cook off site and bring it in. And so they were just preparing and getting it all put together. But they like literally brought us water bottles. Like they didn't have like anything fully going yet. They're not open until like next week is when they're like really starting to go. Or this week or next week, I don't remember. But then you just sat down and they were like, cool, food's coming. And you're like, we didn't have menus, we didn't order, they just brought us food. And but I think this is something that Preston talks about, and then I'll tie it back into what Andrew is. It's like doing your best at all levels. Like when you're making a trash box, like make the best trash box you can make. Or Andrew puts it a good way of like when talking about the restaurants that he's done and been a part of, and obviously plays a big role in these, is like they're traditionally 1907 is a barbecue restaurant on Mother's Road. Phenomenal barbecue. I know you've had it before. Super, super good barbecue.
Yep.
But the kind of things that Andrew talks about are like, your brisket can be great, but like if your sides are awful, like people are still going to notice that. You know what I mean? And so he's like, when they brought out some of the sides they were making, they had like elote, which I thought was really good for somebody who literally the only food I don't like is corn, and I thought it was good. But they made.
I think about that every time I eat corn. I'm like, Thomas, this is the only food he doesn't like. That's interesting.
There you go. I'm glad. Yep. I'm on your mind all the time. I get it.
No, just when I eat corn.
Yeah. Well, you eat corn a lot then, I hope. But like then they brought out beans, and I was a big fan of the beans. They were just like the cowboy beans kind of thing. Like had a little bit of brisket in them, like kind of slow cooked, a lot of good flavors. And I was like just eating it with chips, and I was like, dude, these beans are awesome. And he's like, you have to treat your beans like your brisket, or like it's not gonna. You have to treat everything as being like as important as the
I'm
next
eating
thing.
Just as much of the sides, if not more.
Right. And if you're treating your sides as an afterthought and you're not treating them as valuable as you treat your brisket, like people are not going to appreciate the whole experience. It's not going to be a good entire experience.
I mean, that's what, when we went to 1907, it was obviously the brisket is phenomenal. Yeah. Like legitimately, it might be the best brisket I've ever had.
I will put my hand to saying that is the best brisket I have ever had in my entire life. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
And when we went, he was like, oh yeah, we almost didn't serve this today. Like this isn't our best. And I was like, this is the best I've ever had in my life. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But I remember, obviously the brisket was fantastic, but the thing we ended up raving about the most was the potato salad.
Yeah, right.
And it was, Alyssa actually ended up getting the recipe from, because she was like, "This is amazing potato salad."
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is it's part of, and I think like, we have introduced a lot of things to this company that have come directly from Andrew Aguero, because he's just an awesome guy and just knows what he's talking about when it comes to a lot of things. But like that is something that resonated with me, because I feel like that's how we treat things here too. Is it's like it's I don't know what the direct correlation or the direct how that would apply exactly, but it's like we treat customers. Maybe it's, like I'm going to treat a customer the same way that comes in and buys a bar as a customer who comes in and buys 40 things. Like it's like the experience should be the same. Like I should be just as excited. I should be putting in just as much work. I should be doing all the same things for the customer who comes in, who maybe spends, I'm used to having a desk, not a table, sorry. But like a customer who comes in and, I'm going to treat a customer the same way that comes in and spends nothing or spends maybe just a free shake pass or comes in and just buys a bar, or somebody who comes in and like blows all this money. It's like, that's not what it's about. It's about like treating everybody and giving them all a good experience. Yeah. So it's like treating people even when they're not buying a ton the same way.
No, it speaks volumes to, and I'll go back to something in a second, but that speaks volumes to obviously you guys, treating that customer down in Norman like amazingly, because he was, driving all the way from Edmond down to Norman and just apparently ignored all the t-shirts on his way down to get all the way down there. That was actually one thing that we really had a lot of people surprised at when we were opening in Norman. A lot of people are like, oh, that's a lot of opportunity there. Like, and, you won't have any cannibalism at all. Well, we actually have a decent amount of people that drive from Norman up here. Yeah. Like I remember Nick, our real estate agent, was like, you have people drive from Norman? Yeah. It's like, yeah, right. We got a handful that do regularly. Yeah. We even ran a heat map off of, what zip codes are our customers coming from. And, obviously red right around Quail Springs Mall, orange kind of in North OKC, yellow kind of through the rest of Oklahoma City, the metro area. And then you get down to Norman, it's like this little orange spot in Norman. Right? Yeah. We're going to go there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Why not? Because you're getting a number of people. But yeah, I think that's it. It's like, and I think people notice those kind of things. Like they notice that a lot of our, like we've talked about in the podcast before, is like a lot of our most loyal, like big time customers who shop with us all the time, come and see us all the time, like do all those kind of things, that just love us and super high DTAT scores, like just really big into Triad. Like those people are far from the people who spend the most money. You know what I mean? It's like that's never. I appreciate that that's not the point, but I think that's like we've treated everybody well, and I think that's why we treat everybody like their beans, or treat everybody like their brisket. I don't know how to use that analogy, but you get it.
I think a good one is my dad asked, I think this was kind of early on into business, of, hey, when you guys have, my dad asks a lot of business questions because he's retired now, but he was worked in a lab, so obviously big into science. Worked obviously with did a lot of blood work for Children's Hospital in St. Louis, and then another hospital for a little bit before he retired. But obviously he's like, that's his job is science. But I think he's taken a really big interest since we've gone into business of like, just different things. Like we'll get on rolls sometimes where my dad's just firing off questions, and you can tell he's genuinely interested. Yeah. But there was one point in time where he asked, when you guys have, someone that's like a gym owner or a trainer or, someone that's really influential in the fitness community come in, do you give them extra special treatment? And my answer was no, because we're giving the person that isn't that person, the person that's literally, they just came from their first session in a gym ever, the best possible experience that we can. Yeah. It is impossible.
We don't hold back.
We don't hold back. It is impossible for us to give anyone else a better experience.
That's your brisket and your beans right there.
Exactly.
It's like, no, we can't treat somebody better because we're already super special, super extra. It's just like, no, we're already trying to do that with just anybody who comes in, like you said, after their first day of working out. Like, that is the beans and brisket, but it's like, no, you treat them the same because they're both just as valuable. Like they're both here, they're both trying to do something, they're both trying to improve themselves or whatever it is. Like it's like they're both choosing to come here, and we're so excited about that like how much they spend or who they are doesn't necessarily matter. We're just excited to see people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, can't do better than it's like, I think I had there's a story of I can't remember who it was, but it was a kid who wasn't getting the best grades in school. He was getting like C's, maybe some B's. I don't know. Ryan, were you a C student?
Come again?
Were you a C student, a B student?
You a good student?
I was a pretty solid student. I
Nice.
think A's and B's for the most part until
Nice.
college.
So I think it was, again, I can't remember who this was, but yeah, it was someone that was, they were getting C's in school, and, you know, the mom, you know, was talking to them and, hey, you know, we just need you to do a little bit better, you know, in school. And the kid was like, Mom, how can I do better than my best?
Right.
C's are my best, Mom.
Yeah, right. Right. Hey, but I get it though. It's like that's not an untrue thing. It's like
I think this kid was just trying not to try.
yeah, no, I understand. But he's got some wisdom to him.
And he does. So, yeah, smarter kid than he's led to believe.
That's right.
And C's would lead to believe.
Yeah, that's right. That's very. But yeah, no, I think that's something that like I know we haven't instilled in the company, but it's like when Andrew talks about it, it's something that it always catches me off guard because it's like, man, that is such an important aspect to this. Is it's like you have to. You know, your barbecue restaurant, you treat everything like it's your brisket.
Yep.
You can't do less for this just because it's pseudo not as or it's like supposed to be not as important. It's like, no, everything's just as important as the next thing.
Yeah. You know, I didn't really realize that either until my dad asked that question. And I was like, man, I'm like, do we do more? Like that makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
That we would do more for, you know, a customer that's
We don't
more
have any.
influential.
I literally have nothing more.
And I even had to think about it for a second. I was like, no, but I don't think we can do anything.
Yeah, right. But that's a cool realization to come to.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, you know, I think that is a very good testament to like why we have people who maybe traditionally wouldn't be your supplement store. The customer, I guess would be a good way to put it. Like we have a number of people that aren't your like run of the mill, like meathead supplement store, you know, like connoisseur, like somebody who, you know, we've got a lot of customers who are just like totally normal people who like they work out to be healthy. They do, you know, all those kind of things. And those are great. We love those customers. Right. But it's, I feel like because we don't like pay all this extra attention or like do all these extra things. We try to do that for everybody. It's like when you have somebody who's maybe just getting into working out or just getting, you know, back into it or whatever, this is like a place that they're kind of maybe potentially nervous to come into, which is understandable for a lot of people. When we do our best to roll the red carpet out for everybody is like, I think that those are the people that are like, oh, this is a way different experience than I expected this to be. I was expecting, you know, just some gym bro to, you know, not pay attention to me or just kind of bark a couple things that I needed to be taking, whether without asking me any questions. It was like, no, we try to like,
or be intimidated into buying something. That
right.
You don't need.
Yeah. That's a story told many times,
Yeah.
But it's like, but no, it's like we try to go like the pendulum swing the other way where it's like we try to treat everybody like they're the biggest trainer in town. We try to treat everybody like they're the most important person. And it's like when you do those kind of things, it's like I think that's what keeps those people coming back. And they tell their friends because it's like, oh, this was a totally different experience. Like I think especially in maybe like certain demographics, like I know traditionally like maybe like a older female isn't the most like gung-ho supplement store, like not going to stop at the new supplement store. Some of them definitely are, but like we have a massive demographic of like women who shop with us and have told their friends and come in and say like, oh, this is a very different experience, or this is very different than what I expected. They're super nice. They're super cool. They treated me really well. They listened to my problems. They tried to actually help me. Like all of those kind of things is where I think a lot of success, especially in that demographics, has come from.
It's been kind of almost easy to like, I shouldn't say easy, but it's been an easy like guideline too for, and not in every aspect, but to take the industry standard for supplement stores and like you said, swing the pendulum of like, take what they're doing and just do the opposite.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, okay, well, that's easy to figure
Let's
out.
see. Pressure somebody into buying the most expensive thing, even if they don't need it and they don't understand why they have it. Okay, let's not do that.
Be not only that, but be as the least amount pushy, the least amount salesy that you can possibly be to swing the pendulum. Like don't just end in the middle, but be on the other side.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to, that's an interesting thing too, is we have to prove that we're not a lot of times
all
because
the time.
it's such the standard that people come in a lot of times assuming that we're that way.
Oh yeah, we have a ton of people who come in understandably guarded. That's why, like, especially when we talk to like new employees or through training, like a big aspect of the training is like dealing with people who have been burned by supplement stores before and showing them like, hey, like that's not us. Like it's almost as funny as it is, but it's almost like the protocol. Like it's like, oh, this person's clearly been burned by like other supplement stores. Like don't even let them buy anything.
Right.
Like just swing so hard the other way. Like if they want to buy something, like tell them no.
And that's obviously things that you kind of pick up on after working in the store for years, is that sensory acuity of like you can tell when someone walks in like almost immediately like, oh, I know they are like the first words out of their mouth lets me know like, oh, you are assuming that I'm going to try to push you into something that you don't
I'm
need.
just looking.
Yeah, exactly. They say things like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool, man. I'm like, now it's my job to just spend the rest of this interaction to just prove to you that we are not.
Right.
I'm just going to be
everything I can.
Cool.
Right. Exactly. Well, those are the people who are like, you just want to, you go out of your way almost to like show them like, hey, like this is not your typical experience. Let me, I
don't care what you buy. If you buy anything, my goal is for you to leave knowing that we're not that way.
Right. Exactly. Or like at least coming like in feeling like, okay, you know what, I'm going to come back again and see if it's the same way. You know what I mean? It's like, we'll do, samples or whatever it is, but it's like, those are people who like, I have to talk to new employees because like, we've never had anybody do this, but I could understand from their point of view, that being like a frustrating thing. Like, you're different, you're not trying to do this. You're not trying to push anything on anybody, but it's like, it's that,
when people come in and assume that you are, it's like
stereotypical used car salesman, like kind of thing. And, even those have gotten way better, but it's like, but it's that like come in with like that, like, like, no, and I get it. You won't catch me in another supplement store, or like if I've ever had to go into one for some reason or another, it's like hood up, headphones in, sunglasses on the phone, like on my laptop, like whatever, like don't talk to me. Like I don't want anything.
You bring your laptop in to stores on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, whatever gets them to not talk to me. Well, like look at the situation with Ian when he went into that supplement store back home and he walked in and was literally beelined it for the fridge, grabbed an energy drink because they had like Ghost energy. Something specific that they had that he wanted that energy drink, and he grabs it and he puts it on the counter, and if the guy like ignores that he just put something on the counter, kind of stepped around from the counter and like was like, well, let's get you on the in body, like what are your goals right now, like what are you trying to do?
Who is that?
Ian.
Really?
Yeah, our Ian. Yeah. I think I've told the story before, but it's like, the guy was like, well, what are your goals right now? Like, let's get you on the in body. Let's see if we can. And Ian's like, bro, I just want to buy this energy drink. And he's like, no, I totally understand, man. It's totally free. Like, you just hop on the in body. Like, we'll go. I gotta stop doing that. Like, we'll just hop you on the in body. And Ian's like, bro, I'm about to walk out. Like, just let me buy this. Like, please. But that is the standard. That is what people deal with.
It's the hey, if you put the extra effort into, you can make some, and I think it comes hopefully from good intentions of, hey, if you put the extra effort in to help this person, they'll buy more today.
Right.
But you're gonna have a situation where like Ian, who's like, man, I don't need anything else. I don't want you to sell me. I'm going, like, you run the risk with so many people of them, even if you do make that sale, them not coming back.
Yeah.
Where our main goal is, I don't care what happens today. I just want you to come back.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like I literally look at our like store mantras written in the handbook. It's if we were to take our supplements off the wall and have nothing for sale, customers would want to come back 2 more times just to hang out with us. Right. That is like the words to live by. And it's like, if you can give everybody that experience where they just want to come back just to say hi, you know what I mean? Like that's the way to go.
Yep.
All right, guys, we got to cut this one a little bit short. We've got, it's getting late and we are in Yukon. But I really appreciate you guys. This is episode 8.
Yeah.
Episode 8, which is crazy, which means like we have.
Need to put that in my story.
We have about, get me on my story. I'll do it. But it's like episode 8, which means we have like 16 plus hours of super brilliant content.
Some Garfield impressions.
Yep. we're almost we're gonna elapse an entire day before long.
Jeez. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, like 24 hours.
Someone sent me a statistic recently that was like how many episodes most podcasts get to. It's like 50%. I'm going to be way off on this, so don't quote me on it. But it was like 50% don't get past episode 3, 75 don't get past 5 or something like that. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Episode 8.
Ryan doesn't even post them anymore.
But yeah, we've been running. I think everybody's been running around like crazy. I saw Ryan at Quail earlier today. I don't usually see the same person at 2 stores in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just the other day that I went to all 3 stores in one day, and I was like, man, that's the first day I've ever done this. This day's crazy. And I think I've done that like 3 times since.
I'm going to say something, and this is going to allow you to know like how much running around was happening today.
Yeah.
Alyssa let me take her car to Best Buy. I drove Alyssa's car today.
That I saw, I remember that situation, that opportunity presenting itself earlier, and I was like, it would make a lot of sense if Thomas took Alyssa's car early.
What are the chances? And I
I'm not
even
even
told her, I was like, you don't have to say yes. I know you, and I know you do not have to say yes. And she was like, no, it's fine.
Yeah. I didn't even mention it because I knew Alyssa wouldn't be down, but I was clearly wrong.
Yeah.
I think she's just happy things are rolling.
I think so too, man.
Yeah. It's so we jumped. I got here maybe 20 minutes before we started, and we were having to like measure for the sign on the back wall.
Yep. Very interesting because we have much taller ceilings at this location than any of the others.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it is one thing right to the next. Like we're literally figuring out where to place the sign on the and then jumping right into the podcast.
Yeah, and then you're jumping into other stuff. We're all doing stuff.
Yeah. Gotta keep rolling. It's
right.
8:30 at night, and I still got stuff to do.
That's right. Well, I appreciate everybody. It's been really cool to have like people that I wouldn't expect to have watched the podcast or listened to the podcast. Kind of let me know, just friends of mine or just people in my life who've been like, oh, I've checked out a few episodes of your podcast, and I was like, wow. Like that's really cool because there are a couple of people that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. So that's been really cool. So I love it when people come and tell me that because these aren't short, and there's a lot of stuff to dig through. I'm sure there's a couple nuggets of knowledge maybe here and there. Yeah. Good jokes,
hopefully.
but it's been really cool. I think that we're excited to keep going. So
yeah.
Yeah.
As always, appreciate you guys listening.
Thanks, guys.